Do you have constitutional questions? Get constitutional answers. We'll be answering your constitutional questions live, so get ready to call in now. Are you a prosecutor, law enforcement officer, or local government employee? Want to make sure you are executing the laws in a constitutional manner? Are you a city council member, township board member, or state legislator? Want to ensure the laws you pass are constitutional? Perhaps you're a citizen who wants to know the proper limits on government and the protections for your God-given liberties. Regardless of your role, call me, Constitutional Attorney Catherine Henry, with your constitutional questions during our live call-in show now at the phone number listed on the screen. And remember, together we can restore freedom.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to this episode of Restore Freedom Weekly. I'm Constitutional Attorney Catherine Henry, and this is our second week of trying out the Rumble Studio, so bear with us if things aren't quite the same as they have been, as we've tried out other methods of doing this show, but just trying to figure out the best way to be able to have you guys call in and as well as participate in the online chat, and for me to be able to see that and respond to it. So Nick on YouTube says freedom. That's what this is all about. That is definitely what this is all about. So thanks for joining us, Nick and others. It's not showing that there's anybody on Facebook yet. So I can't see, I'm not looking at Facebook directly, but through the studio, it's not showing anybody's connected. So if you happen to be watching on Facebook, go ahead and throw a comment on the video so I know that you can see and hear me okay, and we can see your comments okay. Last week, 2 weeks ago, it didn't quite work with the Facebook connection. I tried to disconnect it and reconnect it again. So we'll see how it works. But it does look like we have people on Rumble and, of course, on YouTube. So we're going to keep rolling anyway, even if we don't have Facebook going live. Hello to everyone who's joining us in the YouTube chat so far, and to all of you who will be catching up shortly with us. I wanted to start off today with something that I used to be really good at doing when I had my PowerPoint presentations, and I would go through that for the entire show, and I had this whole script of things I wanted to share with you guys. I post, fairly regularly throughout the week, every week, content. Now, generally speaking, Mondays, I try to tell you guys like, hey, watch out, I got a show coming tomorrow. And then Tuesdays, of course, we do the show the second and fourth Tuesday of the month. Of course, today at noon, and the fourth Tuesday of the month is at 7 p.m. But Tuesdays, I also have a true or false question, a poll on YouTube. And so I invite you guys to check that out. I think last week was the first week in a very, very, very long time, possibly the last 4 years, that I haven't posted a true or false question. But we're back at it this week. And this week, it's tying into some of the information and news that I wanted to share with you guys today. But true or false Tuesday. If a judge doesn't follow the law, you can always appeal to the next highest court. So if you want to go ahead and answer that question, go to our YouTube community page. For those of you who are checking us out, watching the live stream on Facebook or Rumble right now, or even catching it later on one of the other platforms, like the podcasting platforms, whatever, you can go to youtube.com/@RestoreFreedom/community, and all of our posts that we post on a regular basis will be there. But that's where that true or false question is posted around 10 a.m. every Tuesday. And then at 10 p.m., I post the answer. And if I remember correctly, by the end of the show, I'll probably have given you the answer throughout the course of today's show. So that would be cheating, of course. But anyway, so, oh, Lori's telling me Facebook is not live again. Lori, were we able to get Facebook, get the last show at least uploaded to Facebook? I'm just wondering if we were able to do that. So people on Facebook could at least see that we're out there, we're trying, and maybe they can connect with us in other ways. All right, so okay, so I gave you the question. Give me a second here. I'm going to open up our there we go. Okay, so I'm going to say last week. I'm used to doing the show every week. We did that for 2 years. But anyway, last time we had callers from New Mexico, Florida, New Hampshire, Michigan. We talked about things like repealing statutes, remedies when family court orders are violated, trespassing on public property, what common law is, code enforcement's use of Google Maps, and unlawful arrest. We had actually probably several other topics that we touched on as well. But today I'm anticipating on actually having several callers. I was just kind of getting us rolling and making sure we had everybody on before I displayed that phone number on the screen. Oh, it is displaying the comments kind of small. Sorry about that, guys. I guess you can't really read what the comments are. I forgot how small it is when we go through Rumble Studio here. But anyway, you can obviously go directly to each platform to check out the comments there as well. But so I anticipate that we're going to have several lively discussions in today's live, because when I posted the post yesterday reminding people to call in live today, I've had more reactions and more interactions on that particular post than I think I've had in any recent episode preview short video, or reel or short or whatever they're called on the various platforms. And definitely just more comments, in-depth comments about the types of things that people wanted to ask. So I encouraged everyone to bring those questions here today. And most people said that they were looking forward to doing that. One or two people said they weren't sure if they'd be able to make it on today. But hopefully, now that we're getting a few more of you joining in the YouTube chat, I'm assuming that's where you'd be watching us if you were commenting on the YouTube community post I made yesterday. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and show that. Oh, let's see. Okay. Again, bear with me, guys, because this is yet another platform I am learning on where all the buttons are and what all the things do here. And well, I'm just not a tech genius. Okay, so I'll do my best. But anyway, while we're waiting for the first caller to call in, and let me just double check that we're okay. So hopefully it all works the way that it's supposed to, but we'll see. Anyway, while we're waiting for that caller, I promised you guys as well in a post I made yesterday to let you know about an update that we had on our Ormond Beach case. So for those of you who are new to me, I was in Michigan for several years prior to up until the start of COVID, and then I started fighting the governor, the AG, the legislature, basically all of them who forgot what the Constitution is all about in the state of Michigan and beyond. And then in summer of 2021, we moved down here to Florida. We had some just terrible situations arise when we moved down here. And I did live streams about that back then. So if you're interested in all the drama and everything we went through, the turmoil, you can find the videos from summer of 2021 and fall of 2021. But and it's the stuff you could write books about and do movies about. It was just crazy, the amount of things that were all happening all at once. But at any rate, we ended up buying a house in Ormond Beach in fall of 2021. And it didn't take too awful long for the city to decide that they wanted to come after us and tell us that we have to remove our privacy fence. Our pavers they're in the front yard here. And we have 2 shipping containers in the backyard behind the privacy fence that you really don't even notice from the road at all. But they're all painted the same color and white. Anyway, so the city has decided that they wanted us to remove all that. And I immediately put them on notice that we were filing a claim under Florida statute 70.45. If you guys live in Florida, write that one down and look it up. It's not a very long statute. If you own property here in the state of Florida, write down Florida statute 70.45 and look it up. But I put them on notice that we would be filing a claim under 70.45 and that they were trying to exact from us it was a prohibited exaction, and that we have private property rights that they were trampling all over. And it came to our attention that they had illegally and unconstitutionally physically set foot onto our property to take all kinds of pictures and poke around and do whatever. And so I let them know that I also served them with a cease and desist letter and said that you need to immediately turn over to me any and all photos, videos, whatever evidence you think you took because you did so illegally, and you can't use that in any kind of court proceeding at any point. So anyway, fast forward, they never responded under Florida statute 70.45. I was not allowed to file the lawsuit for 90 days. I had to wait 90 days, but within that 90 days, when they're supposed to be answering me in writing, they didn't. They instead decided to bring me to small claims or magistrate court for an ordinance violation, for 3 supposed ordinance violations, where they just railroaded us, gave us no notice that they were literally going to try to come onto our property, physically rip up our pavers, our privacy fence, our shipping containers, charge us for removing all that from our house, be immune from any damages to the rest of our property that they cause in doing that, and then put a lien on our property if we didn't pay for all of those charges, not to mention typical fines and fees and other things like that. And so they also didn't give us any notice that they were planning to use the illegally obtained photos that I still don't necessarily know if they were legitimate in nature or if had been modified in any way, because proper foundation wasn't laid for that either. But I was just blown away. I objected to all of it at that magistrate hearing, and it was very overwhelming. It was a very long hearing, and he made it very clear that he was going to cut short any of my arguments because he only had so much time in the day, and he had other things he had to do, other meetings he had to get to that day. So while I'm telling you guys this, I see there's some chat going on. Oops, I should probably get back to the chat in the big enough part that I can see it all. But make sure that you guys are getting ready to call in to that phone number on the screen, 616-303-0093, if you have questions. So anyway, I laid proper foundation for all of my objections. I even filed a response before we went to that hearing that laid out the constitutional issues, the legal issues, you name it. One of the big issues that I had was the unequal enforcement of the code. And when I say unequal, I mean, this is an equal protection violation like none other that I've seen so clearly, obviously in violation of our right to equal protection under the law. So if you go a quarter mile from our house in any direction, all right, I'm going to take the call and get back to this in a second. Hello, how are you doing today?
Hello.
I'm going to turn the volume up on my end. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, and what is your
Is
name?
this Lori?
Lori, where are you calling from?
This is Jerry from Pennsylvania.
Oh, Jerry. Okay. Were you trying to reach Lori?
Are you Lori?
Nope, I'm Catherine, and you're live on our show right now. Did you have a question?
Oh, I don't hear you. I don't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Wait a minute. Oh, there you are. I turned down my YouTube.
Okay.
I'm Jerry from Pennsylvania.
Okay. Well, hi, Jerry from Pennsylvania. What kind of constitutional or legal issue did you call about today? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
You might. I hear an echo. I don't know if you still have the show on in the background, but you might need to maybe mute the computer or whatever you're watching it on.
Okay, I have.
Okay. So what kind of legal or constitutional issue did you call us about today?
Well, on February the 21st, I went to the council meeting because the day before I got assaulted by a public servant. And when I went to pick up right to know forms, I went to the council meeting and spoke up, and I got arrested.
You got arrested
for standing up for my constitutional rights of freedom of speech and redressing my grievances.
And so what was the charge?
It's a misdemeanor 3, disrupting a meeting and obscene language.
Wow. Okay. So I'm writing that down because that's interesting. So disrupting a meeting and obscene language. Now, did they have public comment time established at a certain part of the meeting?
Yes, and this is when I brought the issue up during public comment time.
And do they have a podium with like a microphone or something that you can go up and address the board at that point?
Yes, but I'm disabled, so I have to sit down and requested them to move the podium.
Okay, so did they acknowledge you as a speaker at that time?
Yes.
Okay. So what was it that you did then that they considered to be disrupting a meeting?
Well, the borough manager who assaulted me at the borough office, I brought it up at the meeting and they didn't want to hear it. They refused to hear it, told me that I could talk about it at the end of the meeting, which many times when I go to all the council meetings and speak up on stuff, my constitutional rights are always violated. And I fought back. I said no. This was important to me. This is the second time that the borough manager has assaulted me. And I brought it up. First time I went to the police, they didn't do anything. This time I brought it up at the meeting.
So let me see if I got this right, because I just want to make sure I'm not from Pennsylvania. I'm not an attorney there. I've never, well, I don't think I've ever been there. But in some municipalities or government bodies, what they do is they have usually 2 different sections of the agenda where there's public comment time. So towards the beginning of the meeting, they have a section for public comment time where you can address items that are specifically on the agenda. And then at the end of the meeting is when they typically open it up and have public comment time for items that are not on the agenda. Is that what they're saying the issue was, is that you were trying to address something too early in the meeting and that you needed to address that at the end because it wasn't on the agenda?
Well, the day before, there was an ordinance that I had brought up to them because they changed the time of the meeting. They violated their own ordinance. I went down the day before the meeting on the 20th to get a copy of the ordinance. They denied me a copy of the ordinance. And the borough manager, after he assaulted me, called the police on me. So the ordinance was on the agenda. I told them what number it was and what I was going to speak on, and proceeded to say what happened on the 20th. And that's when I got cut off.
So, but were they saying that if you wanted to talk about the assault, that would essentially be something that just needed to be talked about at the end of the meeting because that itself wasn't on the agenda? Is that what they were claiming?
No, not at all. Not at all. I was never told I was out of order. There was a police officer there because now that I do public comments, the mayor has decided that when I speak, there's a cop behind me.
So you mentioned earlier, though, that they said that if you wanted to speak at the end of the meeting about it, you could. What was the reasoning that they said that needed to go at the end of the meeting then?
They didn't give a reason.
Okay.
They did not give a reason.
Again, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there. I haven't seen video of it. My guess is it's something like that. And just something to be aware of, not just for you, but for other listeners, that oftentimes that's one of the things that in some senses it makes sense because they need to address the items on the agenda. Some of those items may very well have been requested to be on the agenda by other citizens or are, have proper reason for being addressed. And so, and that's, the agenda items are typically why people go to the meetings because they want to have their voice heard on a certain subject. So it makes sense for those reasons why they would separate public comment time and say that, okay, at the beginning, before there is, a full discussion by the board and a vote on one of those agenda items, before that time is when people should have the ability to speak on any given agenda item, whereas all non-agenda items should be reserved for the end of the meeting. And so maybe that's where they were going with that, and they weren't being very articulate in how they were trying to tell you what was going on. I find it interesting that you're charged with obscene language, though, because generally speaking, of course, it depends on exactly how it came out and what words were said and if it was directed to someone individually or if it came out as a threat or all these other things. But generally speaking, just using swear words or something like that is not something you could be criminally charged for. Certainly not something that you could be stopped for speaking at a public meeting for during public comment time. So that is, it's very interesting. Do you have a public defender representing you?
No, I hired a attorney from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Yeah, because I live in Westmoreland County and I don't believe in hometowning. I've learned a lot from you, and I hired one from Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And another thing I'd like to bring up is that I have a Department of Justice complaint that is active because they have been violating American disability complaints that I've had. And this is in retaliation because of the DOJ complaint.
Okay.
Because they were informed by the solicitor at the meeting that if they did not resolve these problems, DOJ was going to come in and file litigation against them. I have never had a criminal complaint ever been in court. So this is all a thing with they're trying to make me look bad while they're going through litigation with the Department of Justice.
Right. Well, I mean, it definitely sounds like there is reason to think that there's retaliation there and that your rights were violated. It's hard for me to really say too much specifics without me having seen, the video or read transcripts or, anything like that. But in the future, I I strongly encourage you and others to really study the agenda, how things are worded on there, and then if there's any kind of whether it's an ordinance or resolutions or bylaws or anything like that, where they lay out the rules and procedures for their meetings, when they have certain public comment time, things like that. And so I think that would be sorry, I'm getting distracted because there's a weird sound now that I have somebody else calling in. But that's an important thing to, in any situation, whether you are speaking at a public meeting or whether you're in court or whether you're speaking at a legislative hearing or something like that. We need to know what the rules of the game are. We need to make sure that we're not going to be thrown out on some sort of technicality. And that's just the way that it is. So we just need to really pay attention. Most municipalities, most governmental entities, for their public meetings, they go through and follow a Robert's Rules of Order type of procedure. So kind of looking at what those rules are and familiarizing yourself with that. I've recently shared, as a freedom fighting tool, I shared a cheat sheet for Robert's Rules of Order, so you can kind of see some of the things you might bring up. But that's just something to keep in mind, that, as American citizens, as United States citizens, we should definitely, with no doubt, with no question, we should have our God-given liberties, our constitutionally protected God-given liberties respected at every turn. And the thing is, we don't. Every single government agency, at every single level, and every single jurisdiction, all across our country, is full of tyrants or those who are ignorant or those who just are just clueless about the Constitution. But we just need to figure out how to best play the game so that we can have the best opportunity to fight the core fight, to be able to have that chance to really speak our mind on the issues that bring us to those meetings or to those court cases to begin with. So at any rate, I guess, even while your case is pending, I would definitely take a look at, do some research, dig up what their rules of procedure are, what the agenda was, get a hard copy that you have with you for that day, because those will go to some of those charges. But I
did, excuse me, I did, and the ordinance number was wrong on the agenda.
Okay.
So that's why I was bringing it up, because the day before I wanted to get a copy of the ordinance.
Right.
And I finally got a copy of the ordinance, but it didn't go with the agenda, and that's what I was bringing it up. But I shouldn't have been assaulted because I walked into the borough office to get a copy of the ordinance, and they denied me a copy of it.
Well, yeah, you definitely should never be assaulted by a government official at any point for any reason. But yeah, there's a lot of issues all wrapped up in that one scenario. Were we able to kind of touch on the main reasons why you called, or was there a specific question you had lingering? I have that caller's called about 5 times now, so I just want to make sure if we did touch on everything that I can.
I will let you go, and I appreciate you listening to me, and just wanted to know that, and there's a lot of people, as you know, and yourself, that how our rights are being violated.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, make sure to give us an update in a few weeks or months or whatever as your case progresses. Let us know how things are going, and we do wish you the best of luck on all of that, because those charges definitely should be dismissed.
I hope so.
All right.
Thank you. Take care.
Yes, thanks. Bye. All right, caller from, I think it was 818 area code. If you wanted to call, you called like 6 times or so. That call has ended now. Oh, see, it was my bad because I left up the call phone number at the bottom of the screen the whole time she was on there. So I should have remembered that. But okay, here we go. Hello, what is your name?
Hey, Catherine. My name's John, aka Just a Guy Having Fun. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you for taking my call. Hey, you provide some great information, and want to thank you for that. But I had a question that I've been dying to ask since the Heller and Bruin decisions came down last year relative to the Second Amendment.
Okay.
Are you familiar with those?
It's been a little. I've had a lot of crazy shit happen in the last year, so I did some videos on the Bruin decision. I don't remember, what was the name of the other case you said?
I believe it was the Heller decision, and basically what they ruled was taking the Second Amendment back to the history, text, and tradition as written during the ratification of 1791. You tracking with me on that?
That's not exactly what they said in Bruin, unfortunately. They went a little bit more for the historical, how it's been applied across the country throughout history in America, but they didn't just say, well, at the time that the Second Amendment was enacted, what were the implications of it and the historical perspective only at that time. They looked at it continuing down the road. They expanded that conversation much longer than it needed to be, and totally lost sight of just looking at the frickin' Constitution and putting the period at the end of the Second Amendment. But anyway.
I'm tracking with you, and I don't necessarily disagree as a layman, not an attorney. But my question is this: can that theory or justification, if you will, be applied to the First Amendment? In other words, starting to take the First Amendment back to the history, text, and tradition as they did with the Second Amendment?
I mean, they can use whatever reasoning they want for, they can take what their legal theories from any one given case on any one given topic, and then twist and turn and apply that to any other scenario. I know this is not the reason why you called, but I'm just feeling compelled to say this. We need to stop focusing so much on what the Supreme Court says about the Constitution, what they say about laws, because it's not that we should ignore them. Just like in the last caller, when I was talking about knowing how to play their game. If you're going to court, you need to know the court rules. If you're going to, a legislative session, you need to know what the rules are for participation in that legislative session. If you're going to a city council meeting, et cetera, you need to know the rules applicable in that particular format or scenario. But so many people you guys all blew up I assume you were one of the people I was corresponding with on the YouTube comments yesterday.
Yes.
Okay. So I couldn't remember everybody's username or whatever on there, but I remembered somebody asking about the Bruin decision. So, but so many people, not just you, so many people were talking about cases and case law and case precedent and, what Supreme Court has done. And just right before I went live, right before I had another notification from YouTube that somebody else had this long laundry list of cases that they were talking about. And in the end, they ended up quoting something saying how, common law is the supreme law of the land. And it just makes my head want to explode, because common law is cases. It's the body of case law, as people like to call it. It's case precedent. And you're talking about one specific case, but it's an application to other potential areas of constitutional law and other scenarios. And what's so important that we realize is that they make the Constitution so much more complicated than what it needs to be. They make the law much more complicated than what it needs to be. Their job is not to reinvent the wheel in telling us what the Constitution says and how it applies. Their job in the court system is to resolve disputes. That's their job. And so, does it make sense to have case precedent? Well, sure, because if you have a specific situation where it's really ambiguous about what the Constitution says or doesn't say or something like that, and you have the same set of parties, similar parties going in with the same kind of situation, it's important to know that there's going to be continuity from one case to another. But number one, we know that doesn't happen. We know that you can have the exact same facts in two cases, and one case might turn out this way and the other case might turn out that way. But we also know, well, I'm hoping people know, common law cases, case law, case precedent, whatever you want to call it, even from the U.S. Supreme Court. By the way, I am admitted to practice in the U.S. Supreme Court, so I'm not saying this as an outsider, but even there, we need to not focus on that as being like the end all be all, that common law is the supreme law of the land. Hell no. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. And then constitutionally enacted statutes are what we should look at next. I'm sorry, guys, if you're watching the video and not just listening to me right now, I have some sort of hair, and as you can see, blonde hair is hard to see. And it's tickling my face, so I apologize for messing with my face. But the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. And in the Bruin case, so last summer, if you guys are new to my channel, I'd ask you to check out the videos that I did. I don't even remember now if I did one video on all the recent cases or if I did separate videos on each, but there were like 3 or 4 decisions around, I want to say early June of last year, that they came out with the Dobbs case on abortion. They came out with Bruin on the Second Amendment. They came out with, I can't even remember now, the case about the football coach, and it was a First Amendment issue. Several key cases that came out, all one right after the other. And it was just mind-blowing what they were doing. Now, in general, they were taking steps in the right direction, sure. But they overcomplicated the crap out of all of it. And they had some really bad stuff written into those decisions, even the good decisions, or, the good opinions, or the constitutional conservative justices. Nothing went far enough to just say the Constitution says what it says, and everybody else just needs to figure out how to read it. If you need lessons in how to read, then do that, but we're not going to complicate it. The decisions don't need to be as lengthy as they are. And so at any rate, I was really disgusted with the Bruin decision, especially when it comes to that. Well, let's look at this historical perspective about how things apply and what laws were okay. Because what they're basically saying is, if in, say 1795, okay, the year 1795, there was a law in New York City that was passed that said, it somehow restricted your rights to carry a firearm. And nobody really challenged it, or they challenged it only to the first level of court, but then they didn't appeal that decision. Or maybe they appealed it and it was just a bad ruling. Judges make bad decisions all the time. Just because there's some sort of bad case precedent out there or bad statute, perhaps one that's been on the books for 200 years that no one's ever challenged, that doesn't mean that it's constitutional. So I know that's a lot of words and not really at all where you were going with your question, but does it kind of make sense what point I'm trying to drive home on that?
Yeah, I think we can both agree that judges don't always get it right, and there are bad court decisions. And yeah, you kind of answered my question that the legal theory can transfer. It's just how it's, I guess, presented and what kind of judge you get. But
Yeah.
I appreciate your time, and you did help me out there a little bit.
Okay. Good. Hopefully you call again soon, and hopefully I'll give you maybe more direct answer next time.
Absolutely. All righty.
Have a
Thank you,
great
Catherine.
day.
You have a great day. Be good humans.
Yep. Bye. All right, guys. I'm going to go back to, okay, I got to touch all my buttons here, go back and forth. So I'm just trying to take a look at some of the comments here to see. Okay. I just see somebody saying Terry v. Ohio needs to be overturned. The vast majority of the cases out there that are case precedent or case law, as some of you would call them, the vast majority need to be overturned because there's something bad in virtually every single one of those decisions. Because what they should be doing in every single one of those decisions, whether it's civil or criminal, whether it's a code enforcement, so it's a quasi-criminal, quasi-civil type of situation, whether it's a business transaction case, contracts, whatever it is, a tax case, property taxes or whatever. Any kind of case, what they should be doing when a government entity is involved, especially, what they should be doing is starting with, what does the Constitution say on this point? What does the U.S. Constitution say? And if it's at all, an area that a state constitution would have any kind of bearing on it, what does the applicable state constitution say? They need to start there. Now, if the U.S. or state constitution then allude to some sort of statutes that would be applicable or necessary to give effect to that part of the Constitution, then you need to look at those state statutes or federal statutes. But keep in mind that anything that's repugnant to the Constitution is void on its face. We don't have to wait for the court to tell us something is unconstitutional and therefore void. That's why I was telling people from the beginning in March of 2020, I was standing up and telling people, anyone who would listen, you don't have to follow these executive orders because they're unconstitutional. We don't have to follow unconstitutional edicts, orders, or laws, but more on that in a minute. Hello, how are you today?
Oh, I was watching your live.
Awesome. Where are you calling from?
Missouri, known to you outsiders as Missouri.
Okay. All right. And what's your name?
Am I on the live right now, or?
Yes, you're on live with me.
Hello, America.
What was your name?
My name is Nicholas Rodell.
All right. Do you go by Nicholas or Nick?
Nick Work.
Okay.
My mom says I should spell it N-I-C instead of N-I-C-K anymore because Nicolas Cage does it N-I-C.
Oh, okay. Well, he had some good movies, so.
She likes him. Anyhow, I kind of been through the ringer with the system since I've been, I think, 19 years old. And I don't want to talk to you or I'll take up too much of the time. But, you've heard of stacked charges, right?
Did you say stacked charges?
Yeah.
I haven't necessarily heard of it by that term, but I probably understand the concept, but go ahead.
Okay, well, basically, I guess a long time ago when they would actually charge somebody with what they believed they did, sometimes, and it went way back, plea deals became a big thing for well over 100 years, and the predominant thing, nobody goes to court no more today, for sure. I guess a lot of people would get a slap on the wrist because, oh, here's what the law is, here's what you go to if you get convicted, but, oh, it's a plea bargain, so they now decided, well, you did this, you should get this amount of time, but instead of giving a plea, there'll be less than the amount of time. We're going to stack the charges, put a bunch of frivolous extra stuff on there as levers to get you to plead to guilty of doing more time than just a slap on the wrist. So you may go to prison for, like, say, a year, instead of 10 years because they figure as much leverage to get you plead guilty and then have to offer you probation. If that makes sense. I don't know.
So
I'm not a
just
great
trying to add
communicator.
multiple charges so that at least something sticks and you have more incentive to try to at least agree to plead guilty to one.
Kinda, yeah. Like if I say you robbed me, and then the police are like, okay, well that carries this sentence, and we're willing to do a plea on it, just to not have you on the court docket or do whatever, da da da. But oh, we found a knife in your pocket. Maybe we'll charge you with armed criminal action too, or weapons violation, and all these other things, even if you didn't pull a knife on me when you robbed me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we really want people to go to prison for more than what the plea would be if we just charged them for the strong arm robbery. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
before we go too
anyway,
far down the rabbit hole, though, what is the main
yeah.
topic that I guess concerns you today?
Well, you remember I heard you talk about your lawyer in Florida and how he basically kind of let you down before, tragedy struck him. Wasn't really doing all the things he could do to fight for you when you hired him.
Oh no, he was doing a good job. He just
Okay.
died prematurely. He and I were working hand in hand on the court documents because he understood that I was an attorney, just not a Florida attorney. So yeah,
I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood that conversation, but anyhow, basically, I remember having a powwow with this lawyer because I'm getting charged with like multiple felonies back when I was 19. And I'm like, hey, I got drunk. I did property damage. And this Karen is saying this because she road raged and thought I was driving this car that I wasn't, and I was a passenger in. But anyway, blah, blah, blah. They stack all these charges on me. And I wound up 4 felonies. And the lawyer's like, well, we'll drop this one that comes with mandatory time. You plead guilty to 3 and you get probation. I'm like, but I got to have a violent felony on me, and I got to have a stealing felony because I did property damage to a car, and they called it tampering. There's no evidence I tried to steal a car, and trust me, I was drunk, and the kind of property damage I did to it, it wasn't like, oh, he was just broke a window to steal something out of it. It was like I got stupid on it.
yeah.
And that was it. It was pretty obvious. And I was telling the lawyer, I'll go to prison. I'll take the felony for property damage. But I really don't want to carry all this on my name. And then once you have a record, you're treated horribly, and I don't want to get into everything, but like, I got locked up by Barbie Hayes on probation. She's moved up the food chain in her career. But when she was working Cass County Probation Office, she locked me up on failed to follow a directive, and she actually told me to do something that I did, and then told the court I told him not to do that, and he did it. And my doing what she said was evidence I violated the directive that she lied to the court about. So anyway, she locks me up, gets a warrant, locks me up. My case was out of Jackson County, Missouri. Her office was in Cass County, where I lived, and I went to the Cass jail, and the jail's like, well, we don't have to tell the court you're locked up. That's your probation officer's job. Left me in there like Guantanamo Bay for 18 days before I got a lawyer to come down there and get the paperwork and take it to the Jackson court. I think that's a violation of my rights. And then I've basically just been treated bad every time the cops, like, license plate read me, pull me over. I get my stuff tossed. I get strangled in handcuffs. I warded off an attacker that turned out to be some off-duty cop that tried to strangle my passenger one time. And they put me into court on a felony for that. And I told the judge, I figured out my lawyer's cussing me out, and he's shuffling through papers the day of the trial because he was mad I wasn't pleading guilty. I'm like, I told you 9 months ago, I'm never pleading guilty again to something I didn't do. And I know everybody pleads guilty, so I need you to file all the proper motions and actually defend this case. Yeah. And there's surveillance on it, which the police tampered with. And I got posted on my YouTube channel, proving it. If you go to U.S. Slave, you'll see it. And it's pretty obvious. Interrogation, it was muted. They sent me the DVD. And of all their botched tampering stuff, where the guy that attacked us was of his interrogations was completely muted for some reason, yet I have the same exact recording with the sound. So it's not like he was in there just moving his lips around the same way, one with and one not saying nothing, you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So they tampered with it. And then I go in there and they want me to plead guilty 4 to 7 years on an assault case. And in some of the police reports, they said, well, he's been previously convicted of assault, as if that's evidence that more than 10 years later I did this as an assault. So I go to court. And the lawyers cuss him out, not want to take 4 to 7 years. And I'm like, I don't care, man. He's like, you're going to blame me, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, I'm almost getting emotional about it. It just beats at me so much. And my dad's in the hospital right now, so it's just tough time. But
Yeah.
but
So this new case.
I tell this judge, I said, Judge, this lawyer's not prepared. He's shuffling papers last minute and cussed me out because he didn't prepare a thing for this trial. He's unprepared. I got no chance. And on the trial date, they expect you to plead guilty so much they don't pull a jury. And he's like, well, we'll set it up for tomorrow. And then the next day I come in there and they pulled the jury. They said, I never seen one. And they wanted me to plead guilty to 4 to 7. I'm like, no. And then he went back there and they did their little backroom deal and wheeling deal and stuff. Okay, do 120. And I begged the judge. I'm like, Judge, I don't care. I don't want to do the 10 plus years for something I didn't do. But I don't want to plead guilty to something I didn't do just to get 120 because I'm not going to get a fair trial with this lawyer. Please let me fire this lawyer. I told him the day before and that day, please let me fire this lawyer and find a new lawyer. Give me 1 30-day continuance. Just in the name of justice, let me have 30 days to try to find another lawyer. And the lawyer basically argued that the whole thing's between clients is this way or that way sometimes, but I'm prepared, Judge. And he wouldn't let me exercise my right to fire my lawyer, which I knew was my right. So I've been arrested for saying words I didn't say. They violated my rights for 25 years.
Yeah.
And now I got multiple cases against me for all felony stuff. One from 2011, the one from like 2001 or whenever it was. They got 3 strikes laws in this country. They can put me away for life if they say I stole a 50-cent pack of donuts and they might want to make a felony out of it like they did the guy in California that walked out of a gas station frustrated with the long line and he just put the donuts back or whatever. And they were threatening him with 3 strikes. They can do that to us. They can do anything to us. And I go to these lawyers and I'm like, there's public records. I have literally a citation and saying I said something I didn't say and I was disorderly and they arrested me and convicted me and that was a city ordinance thing and unsupervised probation, not so crazy, but still when they arrested me, that was when they strangled me and my 2 neighbors witnessed it. And one came to court and told the judge. They don't care. And I told these lawyers I didn't have all the paperwork. I'm like, there's public record. You can probably get a hold of it. I got this here. They gave me a citation for saying words I didn't even say, and it's on there. He said this. That's why he's in jail. That's why we took him to jail. And these lawyers, they don't want to rock the boat. It's bread and butter. Us getting railroaded is their bread and butter. It is, these people have a lot of leverage against them with these charges. I'll get them a lot lesser time if they pay me this much money, taking every dime they got, knowing they can't afford me for trial anyway. So they don't really have an option. So it's just, there's certain motions, like certain things to get somebody arrested without exigent circumstances. There has to be a certain investigation. You know what I mean? And in order to get like probable cause and get a warrant. But these people, they just arrest you. They'll just get warrants without the proper probable cause. And they just do whatever they want to us.
Yeah.
All the time. And it's like, I can't hardly get a job if I work. It's just with people that are in my situation, got records, and maybe they belong having records, so they may be kind of cantankerous people, or the people with no ambition, So they're kind of cantankerous people, and I'm working with the lowest low lives when I get a job, and I don't know, people, I guess when they get jealous and they start projecting, oh, I see them, somebody working harder than me, let's get them out of here making us look bad, or whatever else, you know. And I'm just at my wit's end because I'm calling lawyers that call themselves civil rights lawyers, and I'm showing them stuff where it's like in black and white on like this ticket, some of this other paperwork. I've called, complained to the DOJ and the FBI. They're like, yeah, you should be able to fire your lawyer. I've been to cases where the defendant's fired 6 or 7 lawyers before they start telling them you got to cut it out and you're going to have to pick one and stick with it.
Yeah.
Nobody does anything.
Yeah.
Except just screw the individual over that just punches a clock for a living, and they tell you, oh, you have a right to a public pretender if you can't afford a lawyer. Bull. I was out of work for like 6 months, and they told me because I made more than $8,000 gross the year before that I was able to afford my own lawyer. How would you make $8,000 gross a year or more?
Yeah.
And I made like 20 that year, 25 that year, and been out, and I was living paycheck to paycheck on that. I was living hand to mouth for the last 6 months, before, you know, like before I got caught up.
Yeah.
And they tell me I don't qualify for a public defender. They put me on one when I was in jail, but then they could fire that lawyer for me. They said, oh, you don't get her no more. Go find your own.
Yeah.
My grandparents paid $5,000 to this guy, and he just didn't do a damn thing and lied to the judge.
And that's really frustrating for me to hear, because as an attorney, I've been a public defender in 2 different states. I've also been a private defense attorney. I've done all kinds of different law. But when I was a criminal defense attorney, either publicly or privately retained, it was important that I was able to zealously advocate for my clients. And, you know, that means you have to have a good rapport with the client and have trust that goes both ways, communication that goes both ways. And so, you know, I would constantly tell my clients, hey, you know, they had my phone number, they had my email. I would say from the first meeting, I need to know every single thing there is to know about this case, because, you know, I can't have something surprise me, you know, when we're in the middle of court, and then all of a sudden I have no way to prepare for it because I didn't know it was coming. And so, you know, sometimes there are, you know, really good attorneys out there that are trying their best, but clients aren't communicating with their attorneys. They're not giving them all the documents or the evidence that they have.
Oh, this guy, the day of my trial, or the after the first that trial date, and I set it for the next day, you know?
Yeah.
That night, in between there, he had somebody with a settled petty case. It was like a tax thing. He paid him $500 to pay off a $1,500 bill.
Mm-hmm.
And they jaw-jacked for like 30, 40 minutes. Then when that guy finally left, let him come, the secretary let him in the office, and he's supposed to be preparing me for the next day where I'm facing up to like 10 or 20 years.
Yeah.
Felony case. He let that guy, she let them in, and they jaw-jacked and buddied it up for 10 or like 30, 40 minutes. And then he tells me, well, you just need to get the hell out of here. I can't believe you're making me do this. I got so much work to do to prepare for this. I can't believe you're making me do this.
Yeah. And so that's the other side of things, where it's really, as an attorney, that kind of stuff is just absurd to me. That, you know, when you have, in fact, when I was a very brand new attorney in Minnesota many years ago, I was working at a private firm, and this was before I started as a public defender. But at the private firm, I mostly worked on family law cases. And so I remember before I was even licensed, I was just shadowing while I was waiting for my the bar results to come in. And there was this one particular case involving there's a divorce with a 4-year-old child, and Jen was the name of the client. And I remember her saying to me, saying to us, like, I don't agree to this and that, we can work on these other things, but I'm not okay with anything that's going to endanger my daughter. He's been abusive. He's done this, and this, so we need to make sure, we're keeping my daughter safe. And, my boss at the time was, oh yeah, absolutely. And then he goes back in chambers and he totally sells out the client. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing and what I was hearing. And then when we went back in with the client, we're like, well, the judge said we're going to do this, and this. So, and she's like, no, I'm not okay with that. And he's like, well, that's pretty much where we're at. And, the thing is, I've been in the situation where, and by the way, that case right then and there is when I decided I couldn't do it anymore. I, as a single mom, just newly licensed and had just bought my first house, mortgage, car payment, you name it. I'm like, crap, I really need this job, but I can't work for a man.
Right there, just quick interjection.
Yeah.
If they charge you with the crime, you don't take the 120, 4 months. Okay, maybe your family can help you pay up if you got a mortgage or something or whatever you got, so you don't lose everything that you've accumulated the last 20 years. They say, okay, we can cover, but they can't cover it if you go to trial and lose for 10 or 20 years. I know people get convicted, and then 10 years later, they're not in trouble, and then they get caught up, and they've lost 3 houses to this stuff. We work hard. We want to earn a house. We want to live our lives,
Yeah. Well, I guess where I was going with that is that I was willing to walk away from that job security just because I knew I couldn't work for a boss who was going to make me take the cases where, in another case, this guy wanted us to represent him in a custody divorce case, and he admitted that he had broken his child's arm, intentionally broken his child's arm, twisted it to the point when it broke when they were naughty. And I was like, there's no way in hell I'm going to represent this guy. And my boss is like, well, it's bringing in the money. And I'm like, these 2 cases were what sent me packing. And I never looked back. I did not work for him ever again. I worked for another attorney, for a little bit here and a little bit there. But other than that, opened my own firm in 2008 and never looked back. As a single mom, that's a scary thing to do, but I knew I had to do the right thing and fight for people. But the thing is, when you have clients that are saying, I'm not guilty, I didn't do this, even if they have a record. There's a case that I had where a guy, it was just a misdemeanor, so he wasn't facing that much jail time, but nonetheless, and it was charged, it was like a $8 item from a Dollar General in a small town in Michigan. And he was charged with this, theft of, retail theft, misdemeanor charge. And they messed around with the whole case, and they were screwing around with things. And by the time they even charged it out and assigned me, I went right to Dollar General and I said, okay, I need your security footage from this date. And they're like, oh, well, our tapes only go whatever it was, 90 days. And this was past that point. And I'm like, of course they do. And so I'm going around and trying to find any other place that might have security footage. And it was ridiculous, the lengths that I had to go through to help this guy. And I said to him, listen, the deck is stacked against us. They have this evidence, and it's all circumstantial, but it doesn't look good. But you need to know what the risks are. But if you are not wanting to take whatever deal they're offering, that's your choice, and we will go to trial. And so we did. And unfortunately, he let his anger get out too much in front of the jury. And when I polled the jury after the trial, they told me that it was basically his demeanor that lost the trial for him. And so at any rate, it's still his choice, though, whether he wants to plead guilty, whether he wants to fight it. He might have been guilty of 10 other crimes, but not guilty of what they're charging him with. And here's the thing that's important too. Judges need to do their damn jobs, and prosecutors need to do their damn jobs. And remember this simple fact: people cannot plead guilty to a crime if they cannot allocute to it, if they cannot say that, yes, I am guilty and here are the things that I did that satisfy each element of a criminal offense, a judge
I
can't
told
take
the judge,
that.
I'm pleading guilty under duress because I know I'm not going to get a fair trial and you're not letting me fire my lawyer. That's what I told him.
And that's what I would say then. And if they're doing their job, they would have to say, well, then I can't accept that plea and we'll have to go to trial.
I was hoping for that too.
So
I was hoping that leverage them back to maybe give me a continuance and let me fire my lawyer after all, but nope.
And when was that
Sent me to
trial?
120. I'm sorry?
And when was that trial that you're talking about?
I think that the event happened in 2011 where the guy strangled my passenger and I warded him off with a knife.
Okay, so you're talking about something that happened over a decade ago.
And then I think it was like 2013,
okay.
April 2013 when it finally got settled or whatever. I didn't have a lawyer for a long time, and I had a lawyer for like 9 months or a year that didn't do a damn thing.
All I could tell you from, it's too late to do anything about it now for a case that old, unfortunately. But what I could tell you is that definitely don't give up, as sucky as it is. Immediately file an appeal.
One thing too. How do you find a good damn lawyer? Because they all freaking are bar maggots, basically. No offense to you in the profession. I'm just saying they're selling some of the good ones. But I'm not a mind reader, you know?
Yeah, and here's the thing. That's what I can't tell you how to find a good attorney. All I can tell you is to trust your instincts, because if your instincts are telling you an attorney is not good, you'd be better off representing yourself. That's why I teach people about, I've taught people about appeals. What can you do? What court rules apply? How do you walk yourself through the system? What are some common motions you might have to file before a trial? What are some common motions you might bring up during a trial? What are some motions you would do after a trial? What are some things that you might need to do during an appeal? Those are the kinds of things that I try to teach people, because I know that the vast majority of attorneys in our country suck. They're awful. They either don't know the law, they don't know the Constitution, or they just don't give a damn. And it's not okay. So I wish I could point you in the right direction.
I think it's just money. They just are like, well, they know that, like, what is like at the time anyway. I remember seeing a stat like 75% of Americans made like $10 an hour or less. So they just know like what the money is, and be like, well, I'll do some preliminary work for everything they could beg, borrow, steal, have in their checking, sell, whatever.
But they're not even doing the preliminary work.
Nobody can afford trial, and then if everybody works paycheck to paycheck, and they got rules like 8,000, you can't get a public pretender. There's no illusion of due process, because no offense to what you said before about learning stuff, but I've always been taught one who has just themselves for a lawyer has a fool for a lawyer.
And that's bullshit. That's bullshit. I've represented myself in everything, and there's not an attorney out there that would have done a better job. Because I'm the only one that cares.
You are a lawyer, though. You are a lawyer.
You know what, though? I'm not a Florida lawyer. And I've been representing myself in these situations in Ormond Beach and everything else. And
I can barely keep up with what comes in my mailbox. And
I get it. I get it. But here's the thing. There's no Staples easy button on any of this. And if I don't have a way to say to people, like, here's a good referral, this is an attorney that's going to fight for you tooth and nail, or this is how you can find a real good salt of the earth kind of an attorney who's going to know what they're talking about and be willing to fight for you every step of the way. If I don't have the ability to do that, I got to do what I can with what I have. And that's to share my knowledge. So I'm willing to share knowledge with, if people come to me, and this has happened where people come to me and they say, hey, listen, I have an attorney who's fairly new. They're not quite sure about, they don't have their bearings about him yet, but they're willing to sit and listen to you and learn from you about what they could do in this case. I'm more than happy to have a consultation with attorneys across the country about how to best proceed in a case. But if somebody doesn't even find that, and they're looking at best how do I just defend my rights? If you have a feeling that if instinctually, not just because you're mad and it's like an emotional thing, but like really deep down, your gut is telling you your attorney is screwing you over, trust your instincts and run and do whatever you can to come up with the court rules and, the cases, whatever you can.
They denied me.
What's that?
They denied me. I fired him, and they said, no, you don't get to.
But that's what I'm saying is do your homework ahead of time. So if I knew, if it were me and my instincts were telling me this attorney is screwing me over, I'd go into court having filed my own motion or have something in writing prepared and say, Your Honor, I have something here, a written motion. I need a new attorney. And I'm asking you to accept this because here's the thing. Even if the judge is going to do the wrong thing, the best you can do is at least preserve the record. Have everything you need to say. All of your legal and constitutional objections need to be either clearly stated on the record or better yet, in a document properly filed with the court. Because then no matter what the judge does with that, as long as you're continuing your objections or raising those issues, then you can appeal to the next highest court. So that's what it's about, is just trying to get to that appellate court where they can do something about it. If you don't properly raise the issues at the lower court, then you're screwing yourself because the higher court's going to say, well, you didn't even bring that up below. Yeah, you asked for a new attorney, but you didn't say why, or you didn't, whatever, you know what I mean? So, I wasn't there. I can't fix what happened, but
I can't figure out half that stuff on bond. And then it's like, if you're sitting in jail and convicted, I need to figure out how to get my own appeal doing that from jail while people are trying to shank you every other day. That's not making it any easier,
No, and I never said it would be easy. All I could do though is do my best to help.
I understand.
In this way, we all should know our own rights anyway.
Well, I had one question for you, maybe here to be a straight answer type deal, easy for you. Since I've had my civil rights violated so much, and I've called lawyers and they tell me they don't basically want to rock the boat, it sounds like. But isn't it the case that there basically is no statute of limitations on civil rights violations?
That's not true.
That's fine, because I knew, like, if it's like there's medical stuff, you got so much time to sue, or certain crimes, you got 10 years, and some are never, but...
Yeah, there's, generally speaking, there's always going to be some kind of statute of limitations on things because you have to be able to, especially for like an initial case where you're going to have a trial and you're going to have findings of fact. It's very rare that there'd be a law that allowed a case to be, however old, because the interests of justice, it gets harder and harder to really make sure justice is arrived at in a case. If a case is so old when it begins that there's, the witnesses have forgotten things, the evidence has, not been preserved, it's disappeared. So on a civil matter, most of the time you're going to have a statute of limitations issue and you're going to need to raise certain claims right away. So something can be done with that. The concept is if you're sitting on your rights, if you're just sitting with your hands under your, under your lap, you're just sitting there and you're not doing anything, going like, hey, wait a minute. What about me? I have this issue. I have ineffective assistance of counsel, or I have whatever, my due process rights have been violated, or whatever the case may be. The thought is you need to raise those issues as soon as it's practical. And that doesn't just mean, 20 years later when you finally have saved up enough money that you can hire a good attorney to take on a case, unfortunately. So it's not the answer I'm sure you wanted, but at least it is an answer for you. Well, I appreciate you calling in, and if there's anything else...
I guess the only thing to do for me is expat to Russia or somewhere, or Belize. I want to live like maybe free again one day.
I wouldn't go anywhere to Russia looking for freedom, that's for sure. As much as our freedom is trampled here.
Per capita people locked up in Russia, and I was locked up with a journalist myself in Boonville, Missouri. They tried to murder a journalist here, so...
Yeah.
Not like they're any worse for the wear than America, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, we have a long way to go before we can actually feel the effects of the freedom that God gave us here. That's for sure. But I'm not ready to give up on our country just yet. So But I appreciate you calling in, and hopefully some of the things I was able to share with you could be helpful either now or in the future. And at the very least, I hope you at least know that you're not alone in this fight. And, you know, everybody certainly
Some Tennessee lawmaker says I'm not a citizen. He said something about if you don't got Second Amendment rights, you're not a citizen. So,
yeah.
according to some of the people in power, I'm not even a citizen.
Well, I appreciate you calling, and
Yeah, have a good one.
Yep, you too. Hello, caller from the 256 area code. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Alabama.
Alabama. And what is your name?
My name is Randy.
Did you say Andy?
Randy with the R.
Randy. Okay.
Randy. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, welcome to the show today.
Go ahead.
I just said welcome to the show today.
Thank you. I'm actually the one who tried to ask you a question in the chat.
Oh, okay. It's hard for me to keep up on paying attention to the caller. And we got another caller. Caller from the 603 area code. If you could give us a call back at the end of this call, that would be great, because I certainly can't do two at once. But let me see here. Oh, wow. Yeah. It doesn't automatically scroll the chat in here. So there's been quite a bit going on.
No. This is from the chat from your show the other day. It's been a while. And
okay.
You said try to call in, so I'm calling in. So
okay.
Anyway, my question is, so I'm disabled, and I just started. You have to forgive me. I've had a stroke, but I just started a channel. Just start watching, recording police, and I'm just trying to have some ammunition for when I'm sure they're going to give me a hard time, but I have to record from my van. So I think if maybe you remember, I tried to say a case law. The best one I could find was Tech Lines versus Danworth.
Okay, so I do remember somebody on the YouTube community page asking me about recording police from a van, but I didn't remember what the rest of that was. So, but you're asking what's the main question, I guess, that you have?
I guess the question is that a correct case law to use when they give me a hard time?
Oh, well, this is not going to be the answer that you want to hear, but I wouldn't answer. Okay, first of all, the unfortunately, most cops don't care about what the law actually is. And I've experienced that firsthand. So whether you're talking about the Constitution or a statute or an ordinance or a particular case, it doesn't really matter. So if I were you, what I have hung my hat on, so to speak, when I've been dealing directly with cops that are wanting to tell me I can't do something that I have the authority to do, I stick with the constitutional provisions. I'll stick with what our state constitution specifically says, what the U.S. Constitution says. And I won't just say, well, I have a First Amendment right. No, I'll literally have the words in the section, the article number, whatever it is, of the state constitution, U.S. Constitution. If there's a state law or a federal law on point, I'll have that all ready. So it's an activity that you do on a regular basis. What I would do if I were you is put together, so on my website, if you go to, if you search for RFI, or Restore Freedom Initiative, you'll see the constitutional amendment petition that I wrote in 2020 that was going to amend the Michigan State Constitution. And we were out there collecting signatures. We had to get nearly 500,000 signatures across the state of Michigan to get it on the ballot. And we didn't end up doing that. Didn't get enough signatures. Part of the reason was because of illegal and unconstitutional arrests of those of us who were out there collecting signatures. But in order to prohibit that or try to preempt that, what I did for especially in preparation for Election Day 2020, is I put together a cheat sheet, if you will, of all of the main pieces of the U.S. Constitution, the state constitution, state and federal laws that specifically dealt with that activity that I either myself or the volunteers were going to be doing in collecting those signatures. So this is the relevant part of election law. This is the relevant part of, First Amendment activities. This is whatever. And I might have even put some cases on there. But I quoted specific things, and then I gave a citation, had it all prepared, and on printed out copies. So if I were you, I would, and you said you're calling from Alabama, I would look up your state constitution. It's been a while since I've looked at it, and I'm not an Alabama attorney.
Yes, ma'am.
But from what I recall, there's actually some really great protections in the state constitution in Alabama that recognize we have God-given rights, and it's the government's job to protect those. And so you also, if I remember correctly, or if they're still in the books, I think you have some really great state statutes that recognize those God-given liberties as well, and that protect them. Are they always enforced or followed? No. But as long as they're still on the books, I would put them, on this little cheat sheet that you have. And
that's what I was trying to do, but I guess I was doing it wrong. I was trying to find case laws, so I should just go for law, right?
I would, because, really the cops aren't going to necessarily follow, law anyway of any kind, but it's harder for a cop to know in the moment if a certain case is still good on point, or if that's really what it says. If a cop is really going to do their job and go, wait, I don't know about this one, let me look it up. They're not going to be able to look up cases on the side of the road. But it's a lot easier for them to look up statutes on the side of the road, because their damn job is to enforce the law. They should be able to at least go to their legislature's website, type in the code number that you gave them, or, statute number, and go, oh, well, 168.341. Oh, that's the Michigan statute on, election law and who can be at the polling place or whatever. You know what I mean? So they have you have a much better chance that the law enforcement officer is going to at least be willing to look at what you have. I would also carry around a copy of your most current copy of your state constitution, as well as our U.S. Constitution.
Yes, ma'am.
So not just have the selected parts in your little cheat sheet, but also carry those entire documents, so that if you get one that sounds like they're even remotely willing to learn or listen or have an open mind, be like, hey, I got it right here. You can see it in context. I have it pulled out onto this cheat sheet, or the summary, basically, that tells you I have the right to be here. And if I were you, I might also pull together some stuff about abuse of process or malicious prosecution, anything that might alert them to, like, hey, you could be held personally liable for making a bad arrest if you're going to blatantly violate my rights here.
Like, I know that, like, pulling up on a stop, they're going to give me a hard time. So I'm just trying to get some ammunition. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And now I will tell you that cheat sheet is what I brought with me to the scene of Layton Township at the on Election Day 2020, when I was meeting with the deputies there as an attorney. And they wanted no part of it, and said they were just going to arrest me or arrest anybody that was on township property that the township didn't want there. And when I explained to them that they would be held personally responsible, the thing is, they should be. But so far, I've had 0 people help try to raise the funds for me to file that federal lawsuit. And I've also had no attorneys with the experience in those types of cases be willing to be lead counsel on it. So I didn't have to deal with all that on my own. But, you know, so you have a legal right to pursue a claim against someone if they're going to violate your rights like that. Federal and state laws would apply, but in reality, it may be an uphill battle for you to do so afterwards, just so that you're going in with fully open eyes on that topic.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I thank you. That helps a lot. I thought I had it covered, but obviously I need to do a lot more. So thank you so much, Miss Catherine.
Yes, well, thanks for calling, and I wish you good luck, and please keep doing what you're doing, because it takes all of us working together to hold the government officials accountable for their bad actions.
Thank you, ma'am. Have
Yes.
a good one.
Yes, you too. All right, so as I head over here, okay, so I think we did get through all the callers. I know we had at least 4 callers, and some of them were quite long conversations. So it's been an hour and a half of a show today. Thank you all for hanging in there with me. I'm going to go back. Oh, there was one more caller. Okay. Hello, this is Catherine. How are you doing today?
Hey, Catherine, pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. You are actually a lot quieter than my last caller, so give me a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better?
Slightly. Hopefully, let me see in the chat if people can hear you. I want to make sure they can hear.
Okay.
Guys, can you let me know if you can hear our new caller? I'm just gonna do some preliminary stuff in this call before we really get going, so make sure you guys can hear. But can you tell me your name and where you're calling from in the meantime?
Yes, my name is Gabriel, and I'm calling from New Hampshire.
Okay, from New Hampshire.
Is that better? Does the sound improve?
I'm waiting. So far, we have one person says, oh, nope, nobody. Come on, guys. Tell me if you can hear this guy. I need to know if we're good to go. I don't want to have a one-way conversation where you guys have no clue what I'm responding to. Okay, I think somebody's saying yes. So at least one person is saying they can hear you. So I'll turn up the volume a little bit more. I know somebody was saying earlier that the feedback was too much, so I had to turn the volume down in an attempt to try to fix it. But you said Gabriel from New Hampshire, right?
Yes. I've actually spoken to you in the past. I just was calling in because something came about, and I wanted to share this with you and get your take on it.
And were you the caller about a family law issue before?
Yes.
Okay.
So I actually took the available avenues, and I reported one of the judges for they basically, when they made an order, they didn't include, how do I say this? Basically, 50% of the order was based on falsehoods. Like, there was actually evidence to contradict the judge's order, and I filed a motion to reconsider. That was denied. And so, unfortunately, I missed the time to do the appeal because I wasn't as familiar with the system at the time. I was just getting to know how everything worked and getting to know what remedies are available. But I finally reported the judge to the Judicial Conduct Committee.
Okay.
And what's interesting is I had everything, like, perfect. I had my transcripts, I had my evidence, I showed where he contradicted himself completely, like all these things. And they accepted it, and then they turned around and denied it because they said my letter was 96 hours late. So in New Hampshire, you have 2 years apparently to file against the judge if there's an issue like with conduct and so forth. And I was not aware of that for like a year and a half in. So I got everything ready, and like I got on the phone with them and I said, like, look, I just need a couple more days. Can I mail this out? And they said, that's fine. Don't even worry about it. They said, as long as it comes in, like it's not weeks and weeks after the date, you're fine. I said, okay. So the last day I had, I put a stamp on it. They accepted it. They said everything was good. Then I get a letter a month later saying they denied it because they exceeded that 2-year mark by 96 hours. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I got on the phone with the woman, and immediately she retracted her statement, said, oh, I never said that. I never said it would be accepted. I never said this. And it was just awfully convenient. And I'm starting to think that basically they kind of did that on purpose, almost like a sabotage, to to avoid maybe holding him accountable, but I don't want to be like too much of a conspiracy theorist about it. But it was just awfully convenient the way that kind of worked out. And then, funny enough, the judge ended up retiring just 6 months after that. So,
Okay.
just want to get your take on that, if that sounds at all fishy.
That they wouldn't take the complaint, but then he ended up retiring just 6 months after the complaint was denied. Is that?
Yes. And I mean, not so much his retiring time period, but to deny it because of that 96-hour mark. Like, there was a federal stamp on it the last day that I had, and they confirmed that with a letter saying, your letter is stamped for this date, we received it on this date, we'll take it under review. And then they denied it based on that it was late, even though there was a stamp on it confirming that that was the last day I had.
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is that I've had that happen to me many, many times where people in government, whether it's courts or whether it's local government or whatever, a township office or something like that, where they tell you one thing and then you follow their directions to the letter and you turn in all your documents and then somebody else says, oh, well, no, that's not the way that it works. And you're like, well, wait a minute, but that's what this person said. And they're like, well, sorry, sucks to be you. That's not how it works. And you can't just rely on somebody's word. I actually bought an entire house that I turned into my law office before I met my husband when I was a single mom. And we had this whole big issue about zoning, and they wanted to force me to do all kinds of ADA. I mean, tens of thousands of dollars for a property I spent like $30,000 or $40,000 on. And they wanted me to do all this modification to the building. And I'm like, whoa, I just want to use it as is. And I got the okay from the township beforehand. Oh, well, you can't rely on the town, sorry, that, you can't go with that. The most ridiculous things, that it's frustrating, but to me, it's not so much fishy as it is incompetence and a general lack of due process.
Okay.
It could be that there's something fishy going on there, but not necessarily. And there's a lot more just plain ignorance and gross incompetence than there is outright intention to do wrong. Now, there's both exist, trust me, but there's just a lot more of the unintentional wrongdoing where people are just too lazy to really know what they're talking about, or too ignorant. Maybe they think they know what they're talking about and they're steering you wrong or whatever. So it could be that too, that they've had a policy change or something of that nature, that maybe that's how it used to be. Or it could be that, had your stuff been processed with that particular person, they would have run it through. There's all kinds of reasons why, but to have the judge then retire 6 months later, conspiracy theory or not, I'd say take it as a win, because you need to take the wins wherever you can. And if that judge who would throw out all common sense, facts, truth, and law is no longer on the bench making decisions and ruining other people's lives, that's a win we need to recognize as a win.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah. And I did see it as that. Like, I'm like, okay, well, at least he's gone. And then later on, I had actually found out several people, and I was not the only one, had submitted violations on him. And, yeah, it was very interesting. It was like our little town had like a makeover shortly around that same time period. We got a new chief. We had a new judge. It seemed like more or less they were worried about civil suits coming in, so they were trying to clean everything up. But that's just that's just because I know the area, and it's a very small town. But okay, yeah, I just want to get your take on that. It was, I get it. 96 hours is still 96 hours, but still, though, like after the phone call with them and the confirmation and everything, it just felt like they were leading me on for failure.
You know what, though?
I figured
it occurred to me, though, I would still take it as a win, because you know, the fact is somehow the substance of your complaint still resonated enough that somebody's eyes were on it, and it sounds like more than one person's eyes were on it. And if it made it in the circuit, even unofficially, where people are like, oh yeah, did you see this complaint? And this guy thought he would, you know, whatever. There's still that human curiosity element that it still was somehow in the system somewhere enough that people found out about it. At least some people inside the system found out about it. And so I don't think it was for naught. You know what I mean? And at least if there's a conspiracy to I don't know, silence you on the front end, you could still see the fruit of your labor on the back end. You know what I mean? That there's still, in reality, it's one of the several consequences or outcomes that you could have asked for, right? So
yeah, definitely. I guess my other concern is I found out that judges, when they retire, and this could be wrong, but they collect a faithful rewards bond. And I kept thinking, like, this guy who has committed all these violations is now going to be sitting on a beach reaping the rewards of something he never earned, you know? And that's another thing that really burned me. I'm not sure if that's something that is accurate or not. This is just what I've done research on in passing. But that was one thing I was kind of hoping to get out of that, is that because of so much wrongdoing that he's committed, that I was kind of hoping he wouldn't be able to collect that. That was one of the, I guess, one of the motives, at least, for, you know, getting what I had submitted,
right,
just to clear the record, hold the guy accountable. You know, this guy's being called Your Honor all the time, and there's very little that was honorable about him. So it was, you know, it's kind of a slap in the face in terms of, like, truth. So, but at least, like you said, he's gone, so it is a win.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes that's all we can do is, you know, take the wins where we can and just move on, because there far too often seems to be a lack of justice. But that's the thing; it's a lack of justice here on Earth, right? This is not where we're supposed to be looking for our just rewards. That's the whole point of heaven. So, anyway, we just got to keep in mind that we're going in the right direction, and it does help when we can have at least some wins here and there to keep us going in the right direction, to know that it's worthwhile. But definitely, yeah, what you were doing with that, putting together the complaint and following the process and trying to ask them the questions and all that. I mean, it sounds like you did everything you needed to, and it worked out to some degree. So that's not too bad.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. You kind of lift my spirits up on it, like, looking back now. I did want to ask, just while I brought it up, is there a such thing as the faithful rewards bond? Is that, like, a real deal, or is that like a...
say that again? Is there what?
Is there such a thing that, like, when judges retire, they actually do receive a faithful rewards bond?
I have not heard of that. I don't.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of things that government officials from all branches of government at all levels tend to receive at times that is shocking. You know, like retirement payments and things like that for people who used to be state reps or state senators or things like that. I mean, it's just mind blowing, the things that I've found out that past government officials are currently receiving. And it's like, whoa, no, that's not appropriate. So it wouldn't surprise me if there's something to that effect there, but I'm not aware.
Okay. I just, a college professor mentioned this to me, and I did some research on it, but there was nothing, like, cemented in there. Like, the language is very different than what you typically use for someone who's not an attorney. So that's why I just want to run it by you while I had you. Okay. But thank you for everything.
Yes.
I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for calling in again, and I hope you have a great day.
You too. Thanks, Catherine.
So, with that, I'm going to throw on this other whatever screen thing here. Then I just messed up my image. There we go. So if you guys can do me a huge favor and even just skip your next cup of coffee while you're out, or your pop or soda from wherever you're from, and be willing to donate even just $5 today, that would help me keep going with what I'm trying to do, because I started this with the notion that it's the direction God wants me to go in, to help people and answer questions. And that's what I've been doing nonstop since 2020 started. I have been answering the public's questions on the law and the Constitution and how to stand up for your rights nonstop since COVID and all that crap started in 2020, since the very beginning. And I gave up, in doing so, I gave up the ability to earn the big bucks doing private practice or, any kind of government contract work or anything, because I wanted to be able to follow this calling to help people just like you. But in 2023, it became really hard because the amount of donations that came in was significantly lower than the costs of actually running all this stuff. And I'm continuing to do stuff to try to reduce those costs. We've reduced yet more costs on the side of doing the newsletters and things like that, which I think we finally have out there. If you are not receiving our newsletter, if you think you are signed up and you did not get yesterday's newsletter, please reach out to me at contact@restorefreedomkh.com, because I did send the newsletters out and they all look like they were good to go. So if you didn't receive it, let me know, or check your spam filter first. But if you could, even just a one-time $5 donation, go to restorefreedomkh.com/donate. And there's various ways, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App. You could send a check, anything like that. I'd love your help and support so I could keep this mission going, because it costs me money out of pocket to do this. And at some point, if I don't get enough help to keep it going, I'm going to have to stop doing what I'm doing to help people, just so that I'm not, missing my opportunity to pay our property taxes or our homeowners insurance at the end of the year. I'm going to need to do those things. So please help keep this going. But I'm looking to see if there's any, Jay Curvitt on YouTube, thank you for saying that you're sending in a donation. I appreciate that. Thank you to those of you who have donated. Like I said, if you're able to donate only $5 just one time, that can help. If you're able to donate $5 a month, that would help. There's ways on the PayPal side you can do recurring donations. If you can, donate a one-time but much larger gift, that would be greatly appreciated. Every single dollar goes directly into an account that pays for legal work or legal resources so that I can help people just like you. This is my full-time job. This is what I do, is fight for freedom. And make sure, if you guys are new to me, that you just go and explore the rest of the website, restorefreedomkh.com. Check the updates tab. That first page of the website will tell you all the different kinds of things that we have available. But certainly check out all the other videos. Check out that updates tab. Check out the daily posts, where I started telling you guys at the beginning, where we have the true or false questions. And then the answers posted at 10 p.m. on Tuesdays. We have a weekly Wednesday Way to Get Involved challenge, a way for you to get involved and do something in your own fight for freedom. Thursday used to be our Constitution segment recap day, but sometimes I'm just posting some legal updates and things like that at that time. Friday, though, we have a freedom fighting tool that I share with you. Saturday is our Restore Freedom Goodie Day. So I'm posting some sort of post or maybe a short video that shows an item that we have, such as a Restore Freedom pop socket that is super cheap. I think it's $6.75. I think. I don't remember. Maybe it's $9.75. Whatever it is, it's whatever I paid out of pocket. for that and the cost to ship it to you. So I'm not making money on it. That's just a way to spread the word and help others know that we have this resource that's available to them. So make sure, though, that you utilize that search bar at the top of the website, restorefreedomkh.com. Go to that search bar and type in appeals, for example, or type in due process, type in First Amendment, and you'll see a bunch of things pop up. But definitely take a look at all of those court documents, the appeals briefs, the motions, the trial documents, things that I have put right on my website. I'll continue to put more on as time goes on, and I have time to do that. But at least there's quite a bit. There's thousands of pages on there available to you to use for free. So please do so. And please give us a call at our next call-in show, which will be the 4th Tuesday of this month. What date would that be? That's going to be Tuesday, March 26th at 7 p.m. The 4th Tuesday of the month will be here at 7 p.m. to be able to get some of those of you who can't quite do that noon hour time. But give us a call then and bring your constitutional and legal questions, and we'll be able to talk about those topics and get you guys rolling. Let me know what you guys think too about the format now that the last 2 times we've been using the Rumble Studio. If you think there's things, obviously I'm not a big fan of how tiny the comments are on the screen. You guys can't even really read those, certainly not if you're watching on a phone. And we have the issue about it doesn't seem to be live streaming to Facebook like it says it is. So there's that. But anyway, if somebody wants to pay for the more expensive version of StreamYard or something like that, I could try going back to that. But I can't do it on the budget that I have. So doing it that way would be able to have a lot more of those technological issues sorted out for sure. But anyway, in the meantime, I appreciate all of you joining in the chat. It was a lively chat today, calling. I think we're able to get all the callers answered today. They ended up calling back in if I missed them the first time around. And it was a pleasure talking with you all about the various constitutional and legal issues. And I didn't end up telling you the answer for today's true or false question about appeals, but why don't you go ahead and give it a try? Go to our YouTube channel. If you're on a different platform, it's youtube.com/@RestoreFreedom/community. That's our community page, and you'll be able to see today's true or false poll. Go ahead and answer that about appeals. I'm going to venture to guess that the vast majority of you might actually be getting this one wrong today. I haven't looked at it. I have no idea how many people have answered or what their answers were, but this is one that is probably people are going to think it's one way and it's going to turn out to be the other. And I guess we'll just have to do more on that topic during our next video, or maybe if I get a chance to do one of my shorter videos, I'll post a little something about that then. But thank you all for joining, and it's been a pleasure. I will see you all next time. And make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already done so. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Our work to restore freedom would not be possible without support from people just like you. From the various software and hardware needed to the legal research materials, every dollar you can donate helps. Make sure to like and share this video too. And remember to follow and subscribe and click that notification button. Together, we can restore freedom.